Yes, good morning, people. It's Merveleemyers, and I've decided I'm putting the camera on me for a reason. As you can see, I've combed my hair, and yes, this is natural hair. It's not washed, but as my mother used to say, her cousin Bunny, oil and comb. I don't know when it's getting washed, but it will get washed eventually. I'm going to start reading my horoscope for you to get a feel of why I'm doing this. And the focus is on me today. I want to be seen in my natural state, all 61 plus years of me that Sergeant Patel said is fit before doing the biases. Do you have a British passport? Okay, so here goes. Daily Express, Russell Grant, Sunday Magazine, copyright Taurus. You can't force yourself to be cheerful and sociable when there are important decisions to be made. Once you have a clear idea about your plans, you will feel more chilled and able to love, laugh, and be happy. I am doing this to honor any persons who have been through my kind of journey. In particular, for my granddaughter who is at the age I was when I became pregnant. Yeah? Because of what's happening to me now, I have to do this and document. So as I am one to say, I'm going to read the things they say. It is not length of life, but depth of life. Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I'm going to go around my house so you can see the photographs on my wall. Yeah? Because some of these people live short lives and some live long lives. Like my husband, who will be 98. Who will be 98 in a few months. And yet the past 6 years has been hell on earth for both of us because of discrimination. And I have to put in there before I forget what he was told. And I'm focusing on my sons there. Mr. Tomlinson have a small illusion of one day becoming a property tycoon. So that was putting a letter to his solicitor. Yeah? All because he has what we Jamaican people call ambition. I was just watching a video by somebody who contacted me to find out what one of my posts was about. And I've discovered he used to live on the Aylesbury estate. And I'm going to try and link up with him. Because at the moment he lives in Thailand. Yeah, these are some of my mementos. So at the moment, as I said, I'm going to make myself comfortable now. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to just record my thoughts growing up as a child and how trauma affected me. Yeah? It's okay. I guess I began to understand how some people can be very mean from the time I was very young. Because, you know what? I was different. I was an only girl. I grew my height, full height, by the time I was 12 years old, probably. So I was this tall, skinny girl with a broad nose, and some call me ugly. I only knew the story about me having long hair because my mother, who wasn't a talker, told me briefly that she'd left me with Aunt May, and Aunt May cut off my hair and said I wasn't thriving because the hair was sucking me. Remember now I tell you I was thin. Back in Jamaican parlance, they say maga. Yeah? My sister-in-law always says to me, you have long hair. But I have no memory of that long hair. You know, when I realized what they were talking about, I'd gone back, I had my hair natural until the time I was 25 when my friend, next door neighbor friend, Miss Beebe, straightened it for me. And then later on, I started putting chemicals. So it was perm, then it was jerry curl, and the whole works. So then I decided to go back natural by chance. At one stage, because of stress, I'd lost all my hair. It was coming off from the skull. Because of stress, domestic violence and everything. And I remember Christine was staying by us, and she was the one who cut it off. So because I am mostly wearing trousers, I'd be mistaken for a man. Especially when I had the short hair. Anyway, so how did I realize that I had long hair? I started going back natural by default because I was going home on holidays. I intended plaiting my hair, and for some reason it didn't work out. So I wanted to get it done professionally at the hairdressers, and for some reason it didn't get done. Went down to Jamaica, and my son got one of his friends to twist it for me. And I came back with it, and then it just started evolving. Until eventually, I used to go by my girlfriend's house because when I became homeless, I spent time there. And I guess that's how I come to live in Bermondsey, because she lived in Bermondsey. So when I was in the refuge, I used to go spend time by her. She used to wash my hair, comb my hair. And one day at her house, when the revelation came, I had to take the pictures. That's me. I have to document. And my hair has been natural since from 1999. I haven't put any chemical of such in my hair. Right. So I'm going to the story that I want to be on record about growing up as an only whatever. Have its rewards, but it also have its downfall. Because as I said, I was teased mercilessly for being different. I developed resilience as a result of my difference. Because I remember that I was going to primary school, early years of primary school. I'd attended the basic school by the Townhead Baptist Church. That's where the basic school was. And then I'd gone on to primary school, Townhead Primary School. But as I said, I was different. So I remembered we were practicing, because back then you do everything the church way. And I was out in my garden the other day, and I remembered, how did I develop some of these skills that I made into my intellectual properties that have been stolen? Okay. So I go back to how I develop resilience. I remember we were practicing for the Christmas concert at the Baptist church. So we would go and dress up and perform. And all I had was a crepe sole. And that's why I've kept this to help tell my story. Yeah? So it would be something similar to this. This is what crepe sole is back then. Some people call it booger. They have all sort of names. Puss boot, whatever. We'd find names for it. We are Jamaicans. So I remember all I had at the time was that crepe. My toe was showing out of it by now because I guess my foot was going. So we started practicing and I started practicing, and then Mama said she did not have money for me to buy shoes for me to go to the concert. So I stopped. I want to show how it takes a village to raise that child. So my primary school teacher, of course, who was local, Miss Una Perry. By the way, Miss Una is living in Brockley in the UK now. I have to put everything in, else I forget. I met her coming back from Jamaica at the airport. Okay. So, going back to it takes a village to raise a child. Of course, my primary school teacher, who was local, noticed that I had stopped coming to practice. And when she didn't just let it slip, like what is happening here, I was just listening to the person who contacted me. Nobody takes note. So she asked why I have stopped coming to practice, and I explained the situation to her. And she advised me to wash the crepe, put it up, come to school barefoot, so I could have it to go perform at the Christmas concert at the Townhead Baptist Church. And so said, so done. So I was able to take my place. And what came to mind is when I performed at the Globe Theatre with the Hub Choir. Anyway, as I said, I was teased mercilessly. And I wasn't only teased. I was beaten up. So there was this girl, and I'll call names. So her name was Coral Fenton, and she lived at the top of the hill up Gaga Street. So Gaga was a landowner who sold out the property. So that's how my family owned our own property. So she used to beat me up. She and her friends used to take set on me and beat me up. And I had to take the beating. It's me. So see from when? Me against the world. So my big brother heard about the beating and he told me, he said, if I ever hear that they beat you up again, I'm going to give you a beating. So that day in particular now, we're coming from school, two of us going in the street, and as soon as her body had gone and we turned in the street, I grabbed her. And we fought from the end of the street straight to when I reached my house. And that was it. She never touched me again. And that's why I am determined. And that's why I have continued my fight for justice. With London Early Years Foundation, the Judiciary of England and Wales, now the police coming in to this date. Yeah? 6 years. Coming up since I said my final goodbye to my mother. Yeah? Right. Let me tell you some more stories because I think it's going to be 30 to 33 minutes or so. So I want to pack everything in. As my teacher said when I met her at the airport, coming back, she was telling her daughter that I was a bright little girl. And when I reminded her about what she taught me, she didn't remember that bit. So I'm putting it on record. Yeah? I guess I was not only bright, I was stubborn. Yeah? And listening to Prime Minister Andrew Holness' speech, heal the family, heal the nation, resonated with me somehow in a lot of ways, because he spoke about his grandmother who was a Baptist and one was Adventist, and that resonated with me, that I celebrated everything as a result of my father's thinking. Yeah? Another thing he mentioned was his grandmother always saying, if life spare. And I went a bit further because I done my own recording, and I said, now, if life spare, and the other thing is, don't spare the rod and spoil the child. And I'm glad now for the fact that my mother did not spare the rod and spoil me. Else I'll tell you, I would be a rotten, terrible child going into adulthood. And maybe that's why I take the stance. I developed trauma after my dad's illness. Yeah? I had angst with my father's God, so I swear. You know why I swear? But it was inner swearing. My father beat me one time, and that was for swearing. I guess not a lot of people know I swear. But it all came out now lately since what London Early Years Foundation done to me in passive aggressive behavior. Right. Let me tell you some more of my journey. As I said, I developed trauma as a result of my dad's illness. From a young age, I guess my dad was stricken with Parkinson's before he was 50. He was made redundant from his job. As a result, our life totally changed. I was this feisty little girl who grew up. My mother brought me up, my father brought me up with certain standards. Yeah? And I remember once this boy tried to have his own way with me. I told his mother. I didn't go in any argumentative way or whatever. I just went and told his mother, tell him I wasn't interested in him that way. Instead of sorting it out and making it work both ways, I was the one who it impacted on the worst, the most. Because as a result, I was not believed. The other result is my best friend, my boyfriend, was convinced that I was not the person he thought I was. And that's how we separated. So instead of him dealing with the situation how he should have dealt with it, he chose to reject me and ignore me. And then in the process, I ended up, I guess, searching for what the love, the affection, the togetherness that we had. I've just read my horoscope. So I went looking for it somewhere else. In the interval, I got involved with a married man. Yes, I'm telling it as it is. I didn't know he was married. It started out as kindness because he used to come to my house. He was my mother's busher. And it started out as kindness. So he was kind to me. And then it led somewhere else. So when I found out he was married, my brother who told me, of course, because he was a tailor and he went to take measurement for this man's wife to sew trousers. And that's when I heard and I decided whatever. So I ended up with my first son's father. Yeah. There were other guys who were interested in me, but in my head, if I'm not interested in a person that way, I'm just not interested in a person that way. I've got friends. I've had friends for years. There was no sexual relationship. We have a laugh and that's it. And that's how it remains. Yeah? I'm a girl to my word. Anyway, got involved with my first son's father. So a lot of people don't understand that I have my second son for his father, but we were an item first. But because of gossip and whatever it was, rejection or whatever it was, that's why I had my first son for his father. And then the second one, that's another podcast. Anyway, when I got pregnant, it was the person who I got involved with, the married man then, that actually told my mother. In the interim, my son's father said I should have an abortion. And I was going along with it until he decided to put cricket over in front of me. So I went to the doctor, Dr. Campbell, of course, and he said I should tell the young man to come and talk to him. I went back, I told the young man what the doctor said. And I remember to this day, Dr. Campbell was like joking now, and he says to me, "Oh, your father is going to beat you and kill you now." I guess it was breaking the ice to say, "You're pregnant. You're going to be in trouble. You're only 16-year-old, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, by this time, my father wasn't going to beat me. He was like this shaking man, whatever. And they were not happy that I was pregnant, but they accepted it. So yes, the young man's choice was he has to go to cricket. Cricket was more important than me. So he was going to send his friend to go with me to see the doctor, to stand in his way, knowing that his friend was a chatterbox. You know those type. Yeah? I decided that, you know what? It would be much easier for me to get a microphone and walk from Townhead Crossroad to Burnt Savannah Crossroad or Toll Gate and tell the whole world that I intended to do an abortion. Yeah? So I'm coming up to the crux now of my son told my brother that the reason he's not talking to me is because I said I should have aborted him. That is a totally different story. Yeah? On the matter of pregnancy, paternity test, DNA and all that, I don't want to be in them situations. Because let me tell you something. I get gifts like my father. It's only I can't interpret. Because when I had my second child, if I was fooling around with another man, my child would not have gotten his father. To this day, I cannot explain how I became pregnant. And there's a story to that. Yeah? So that's why I don't play around. Those things are too important. Yeah? And I'm doing this so my granddaughter at the age of 16, she might be going through stages, needing a friend, needing somebody to love her, and ending up in the same situation I found myself in. Because I did not feel loved by my son's father. Basically, I was rejected. I had to write him because for me, pregnancy was such a shame. I didn't finish school. My father was sick and the whole works. Yeah? So it was some sort of shame for me. Throughout my pregnancy, I had to write to my son's father and ask Christine McIntosh, she's since died, my niece's mother, to post the letter. And that's how I saw my son's father 2 times after I became pregnant. And he advised me to go to have an abortion. And the doctor said, come and talk to him. I can't remember seeing my son's father again until I wrote to him, and he 2 visits. And the next time I see him was when I had my son. And he came down to my brother's house in Truro to see us. Because the talking was doing the round that if my son was not his, I would have to support him. Back in Jamaica, they say, mind him myself. So I've been through all of that. I've never heard my son dad say it, Don't get me wrong. But I've heard the talk. Yeah? And that's because my son was misdiagnosed as being deaf and dumb and all that I had to go through. I was particular supportive of my older son than my younger son. For me, my younger son was self-sufficient. As my friend Brian said, an ex-boyfriend. He became like a father to my 2 sons. Because when my first son's father would pass me on the road, struggling with my 2 sons in his car, Brian would be there. Me and him and my 2 boys and his bicycle. All he had then was a bicycle. But he was there for me and my 2 sons 100%. And that's why I give respect to people, whoever they are, who have supported me along this journey. So I'll call their names, not for benefit or anything, just to tell a story about the people who have been supported. So Brian Duhaney, a lot of people think he's Valdin's father. Some people think I'm Teddy's mother. Yeah? And Marcin was one of my biggest supporters. And that's why it hit me so hard, what they done to Marcin. So death, murder are part of my trauma. When I was pregnant with my first son, my uncle Dudley was murdered on a Sunday morning, chopped up in his own yard. The story later evolved that it was her husband. It was his wife's boyfriend. Don't know. Might be Roma, I don't know. The second thing, my uncle Tira was murdered at Bernard Lodge. He was the chairman of the co-op. My brother was there. 1976. My father was sick for ages. The last time I remember seeing my granny was when she came out to put talcum powder on her son. Went back in, she didn't come back out till she died. The other thing, my father and my grandmother died a month apart. 9th of February 1980 and 6th of March 1980. Those dates. That's why when I see Dillis Ipton wrote about the meeting at House of Commons on the 27th of whatever of March 2015, saying that I said I did not know the impact of bereavement on me after the death of my mother and I moved to Bird in the Nursery. That's a myth. That's another makeup. Yeah? That's a myth. That's another makeup of why I am up in arms against the judiciary of England and Wales and the second miscarriages of justice. Yeah? Because I am questioning, why do I have to suffer so much after what I've done? I've buried my help to bury my first brother. I've buried my second brother when I heard. I sent mom to look for him because I know they had their differences. And when I heard that he asked mom if they had come for him, I decided to send his body back home where he wanted to be in Westmoreland. Yeah? And all I've done for families. When I came here the first time, if I sit down to have a meal, I think, my people have food in Jamaica. I remember I'd save up money like holiday time to send to my little brother Irvin, and he'd ask if he's supposed to save some. And I said, no, that's for you to enjoy your holiday. And that's why I so respect my little brother, because of all of my siblings, yes, my elder brother, he doesn't need a mention. He called 24/7 just to check up on me, like what he used to do for mom. And that's why I'm so grateful that my brother is now making sure the house that I got started as my brother Ashton's dream is now in the process of completion. Because when he was buying his house in America, I had contributed because I'd intended that when I leave here, I'm going to go there. Yeah? And that's how we operate as a family. So for my son, who has decided to abandon me on the advice of his wife, good luck to him. Good riddance to rubbish. I don't need him in my life. And as for using the excuse that I said I should have aborted him, why don't he go blame his father for advising me to have an abortion? But instead he's blaming me. Yeah? He's just a mixed up who has been taken captive by religion and now corrupted by politics. And I make no reservation when I said that. Yeah? And my fight for justice continue. I won't let this go over further. I'm going to do another one.